Fort Rock. If you haven't been, you need to go. Its geologic past is stunning, spanning tens of thousands, even millions of years.
Yet one of the things that put Fort Rock on the map in modern times were some sandals that were discovered just down the road from here that only date back about 9,000 years or so.
The sandals were found in 1938 by Luther Cressman. Luther Cressman was an archaeologist at the University of Oregon. They found this cache of sagebrush bark sandals, dozens of them.
Cressman was initially interested in rock art, but during his travels to various sites, he found that the artifacts were the more compelling story. So he and a small crew came to the area and uncovered a collection of sandals that he believed were quite old.
But this was the late 1930s, and our understanding of the age of our planet, let alone our universe, was very different. So some of his peers thought he might be a little off his rocker.
But around 1950, the radiocarbon dating technique was invented, and Fort Rock sandals were among the first artifacts dated, and it returned a date of over 9,000 years ago.
And while we all know that sandals can't talk, the construction of these sandals spoke volumes.
So the Fort Rock sandals are of a particular style, a very distinctive style, with a toe flap and a flat sole and secured around the ankle. And sandals of that type have been found at probably 8 or 9 or 10 other caves since then in Southeast Oregon, northern Nevada, one site in western Idaho.
Now remember, this was a time when humans were largely nomadic, moving with the seasons and, of course, moving with their food source. While they largely went barefoot during the summer months, the winter brought about challenges that they had to adapt to.
They used them in the wintertime when they would have to go into the marshes and lakes for cutting reeds for bedding or collecting fishing nets or hunting waterfowl.
And while during the summer they likely lived in constructed shelters, the winter likely saw them retreating upward into caves that would protect them from predators and from the ever-increasingly harsh weather.
So Fort Rock Cave, if that applied in ancient times, Fort Rock Cave was probably a wintertime encampment.
Another thing the sandals had to say was that our modern-day tribes are directly linked to the people that walked this land more than 6,000 years before Jesus and Buddha walked the earth.
It is just the same as basketry that was being made by the Klamath and Modoc in historic times. So there's this very strong continuity of tradition that we can recognize from modern Native peoples back 10,000 years.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, here in the United States, we marvel at buildings that have been around since the 1700s. In Europe, they marvel at buildings that have been around since the Middle Ages.
But these sandals, they take the chronological cake.
As an archaeologist, I know that we celebrate a lot of historic things, and you look at things like century farms. Well, this family's been here for a century. Well, I deal with cultural sites where we can trace this connection back 10,000 years. So I mean, I think that is something that people ought to know about.
Now, recently they found some potential evidence of humans walking in New Mexico over 20,000 years ago, which is amazing. Yet modern humans are thought to have been around for over 100,000 years on a planet that's over 4.5 billion years old in a universe that's over 14 billion years old.
And yet somehow I still get stressed out about wrapping up this shoot and being home in time for dinner. For Central Oregon Daily News, I'm meteorologist Scott Elness.